Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today's presentation is about writing a data availability statement for research or for a journal submission. Well, the presentation is a part of a playlist of open science, and the objective, as I said, is to help you to write this data availability statement as part of a journal article submission. We will talk mainly about the definition of data statement availability, how to write it, how to submit it, before some takeaway messages. So let's start with the introduction and asking ourselves, why do we need a data availability statement? Well, there are three reasons for that. First of all, sharing of data promises to speed discoveries and improve reproducibility and expand the economical development in general. Also, it promotes a more accurate verification of scientific results. And data sharing is also required by funders and publishers who ask to share the data because they consider themselves as the owners of the data, and therefore it's very important to provide these data availability statements, and today most journals would like to have such a statement as part of the submission. So actually, what is a data availability statement? Well, a data availability statement tells the reader where the research data associated with a paper is available and under what conditions the data can be accessed. Also, they also include links to this data, and for sure this makes it more, depending on the situation, accessible or not. Now, why it's important to have a data availability statement? Like I mentioned earlier, the data should be able to be used by the scientific community and researcher at large. So why are these data useful or important? This will be part of the availability statement. Who can be benefiting from this data, and how can stakeholders benefit from it? And how can these data be used or reused for further insights and developed for experiments? So the day when we are publishing a paper, we want also to associate with this data, with this article, the data that was used, so that we can allow for future investigations. Now, what is the definition of a data in general? Well, research data is defined as the data underlying a publication and necessarily to validate the research results, or any other data indicated in the data management plan, including metadata. So this is the definition of data. In the context of the research process, these data may be figures, statistics, results of experimental measurements, field observations, results of surveys, audios, videos, and as you can see, they can be all varying depending on the research. When we look at examples of data sets, it could be CSV files, for example, from spreadsheets. It could be an organized collection of tables, a file in a proprietary format that contains data, a collection of files that constitute a meaningful data set, structured objects with data, images capturing data, files relating to machine learning such as trained parameters or neural network structure definition, and so on. Now comes to the following part of the presentation. How can I write a data availability statement? Well, there is different types of data availability statements, and you need to select one of the following 11 types. First of all, you can say that my data is openly available. In this situation, data is openly available in a public repository that issues data sets with a DOI or a URL. A DOI is simply a digital object identifier or a user link, internet link. So the data that support the findings of this study are openly available, and then you can just simply use this statement. If you have a data set that you have been used, you just need to cite the URL or cite the DOI. So this could be one of the first options when you are writing your data statement. It will be a short letter including this statement. Option 2, you can say that your data is simply derived from a public domain. So the data is derived from a public domain resource, and in this case what you will write in your statement that the data that supports the finding of this study are available in such repository, and you name the repository at a specific URL or a specific DOI, and you need to have a reference number, for example, and these data were derived from the following resources available in the public domain, for example. So this could be option 2. Option 3 for your data availability statement is to include it in your supplementary material as part of your paper, embedded at the end of your article just before the acknowledgement. And here you have data available within the article, or it is part of the supplementary material. Here you need to say that the authors confirm that the data supporting the findings of the study are available within the article and its supplementary material. Whether is the data really in a specific section called supplementary material, or the data is already reported in the tables or in the figures that has been already embedded in the text. Whether you choose this or that, everything is possible. Both options are possible. You just need to mention that the data is already in the article. Fourth option out of 11 to write a data availability statement is to have a large-scale facility. Here you can say that the data generated at a central large-scale facility and it is available upon request. So let's say you're working with a company, the company is making it available, so you say raw data was generated at this facility, for example, you name the source, derived data supporting the findings of this study are available from the corresponding author, and then you provide some initials based on request. So this is the fourth option that you can report on your data. Option 5 could be an embargo. Here you can say that there is an embargo on the data due to the commercial restriction, and then you put a number of years. So you say the data that support the findings will be available in this repository at this URL, for example, following and then you define a period of embargo. For my work, sometimes it goes up to 10 years, and then you say X number of months for the embargo from the date of publication to allow for commercialization of research findings. So this is another way if the data is available and cannot be revealed. Option 6, that you say that it is available upon request, and here you say that the data available on request due to privacy or ethical restrictions, so I can share it but only with private people or in a specific private communication. So the data that supports the findings of the study are available on request from the corresponding author, and then you mention the initials. And the data are publicly available due to, are not publicly available due to, and then you mention the restrictions, for example, they're containing information that compromise the privacy of research or participants, and so on. Option 7 out of 11 for the different availability data statement, that you say it's a third-party restriction, so the data subject to third-party restrictions. Here you have a statement like the data that supports the findings of this study are available from, and then you mention the third party. And you can say after that the restrictions apply to the availability of these data which were used under license from the study, and the data are available from the X authors, for example, or this URL with the permission of the third party. For example, this could be also a solution. Option 8 for the data availability statement is to have simply a request from the author. You say the data is available on request from the authors. So the data support the findings of this study are available from the corresponding author. You have the corresponding author initials, and then you have upon reasonable request, we can provide the data. Third option for a data statement could be option 9, that you say not applicable. So you say data sharing is not applicable. There is no new data generated in this study. This could be also an option. And you just have to write that the data sharing is not applicable to this article as no new data were created or analyzed in this study. Option 10 on 11, you can say that the data is restricted. Data is not available due to ethical or legal or commercial restriction. And in this sense, you have the statement of due to the nature of the research, due to ethical or legal or commercial supporting data is not available. And here you need to comply with the GDPR requirement on the privacy of data. If you didn't watch this video, I advise you to do it. Last statement that could be as an option for your data availability statement, option 11, that you say not available, data is not available, and we have problem because we didn't have participant consent. So you say the participant of this study did not give written consent for their data to be shared publicly. So due to the sensitive nature of the research supporting the data, it's not available. So here, this is another way of formulating your data availability statement, but as you can see here, you cannot say I'm not going to share the data because I don't have a consent unless the data is sensitive. Now let's move to how to submit the data availability statement while you are submitting a paper. Before submission, you need first of all to write a letter, and this letter can be a very short letter. You are writing it to the editor. And you need to write the data availability statement by selecting one of the 11 statements that I mentioned earlier, like you remember, from openly available to not available. Then you write your letter, and in this letter you can say data availability statement, and you start to talk to the editor, dear editor, and you start to mention what is the option, and you use the text that I was citing or reading previously. In your text, you sign it on behalf of the authors, and mainly it's the corresponding author who should write this letter and include it as part of the submission documents. And as you can see today, in most journals, when you start to submit a work, you will need to upload a data availability statement. As you can see here, data availability statement. At this moment, you will need to have your letter ready in a Word file format or a PDF, and you upload it. This is the end of today's presentation. Allow me to share with you some takeaway messages before we leave. Well, data availability is very important in all journals and in all submissions. So a data availability simply confirms the presence or absence of shared data. The data availability statement links to data in data availability statements, and they are checked to ensure that the links to the data is what the authors are intended. If data have been shared in a data repository, the data availability statement must include a permanent link for the data in the format of a DOI or a URL. And finally, the research data should be in a format that is standard, accessible, shareable, to allow for the reproducibility and interoperability in the future. So this is very important to take into account. This is according to the FAIR principles. Well, this is the end of today's presentation. I hope you watched previous videos on open science, and I hope you will benefit from that by writing your future data availability statement. Good luck with your work. Thank you very much.